What's happening? Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining me as always. Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. Of course, this is the last podcast of the week for Everything Pats. Moving forward for the next few weeks, no Friday podcast. I mentioned that last Friday. We will not be back on Fridays until July 18th when we go live on that Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube as we get ready for training camp the following week. Let's talk about Drake Maye and challenging Christian Gonzalez. Now, I spent some time talking about Drake Maye on today's episode of Locked On Patriots. You can check that out. His progression from OTA practice number 1 in front of the media to what the media saw yesterday during that second minicamp practice. But there's a cliche, and the cliche goes, athlete X has that dog in him. We've always heard that. Oh, he's got that dog in him. Now, what does that really mean? It could mean a number of different things, but I believe Drake Maye gave us a perfect example this week of why people say he has that dog in him. And the example had to do with Christian Gonzalez. Here's what Maye told the media. Anytime we go against a great defense, they've got 2 great corners. I told Gonzo, I'm going to test him. I'm not going to not throw at him or Carlton Davis. So there's Drake Maye telling us that he told Gonzalez, look, I'm going to throw at you during practice. I'm going to test you. I'm going to test you, and I'm going to test Carlton Davis. Now, why does that show that Drake Maye has some of that dog in him? Well, it's rather simple to me. It's a mentality thing. When we talk about an athlete having that dog in him, it's all about mentality. Some would say the Mamba mentality for Kobe Bryant. But it's all about embracing challenges and understanding not to take the easy way out, to continue to fight, to continue to grind. And when Drake Maye tells us that he's going to go after Gonzalez during practice, he's embracing the challenge. He understands how good Gonzalez is. We all understand how good Gonzalez is. We talked about this weeks ago. Devin McCourty said on Forged in Foxborough episode 1 that he believes Gonzalez will be the best corner in football this year. So there's no denying that Gonzalez is really freaking good. And Gonzalez has been excellent by all accounts during the past few weeks, getting ready for training camp. He has been absolutely excellent. He's been the best player on the field. So for Drake Maye to look Gonzalez in the eyes and say, I'm going to test you, I'm going to go after you, that means the quarterback is willing to embrace the challenge of attacking the best defensive player on his team day in and day out because he wants to test himself. He wants to test himself, and he also wants to show that he has belief in his wide receiver core. Could you imagine Maye staying away from Christian Gonzalez every single practice because he doesn't want to throw an interception? He doesn't want to look bad. He doesn't want to be questioned. He doesn't want the media reporting on it. Could you imagine that? But Maye's not doing that. Maye is telling all of us, no, I understand. I'm going to go after Gonzalez, and at times that's going to backfire. But I have to do that because I want to get better, and I want to prove myself against the very best. And if we have one of the best corners in football, I want to see if I can out-duel that guy. He's going to get the best of me, and hopefully I'm going to get the best of him. But not only that, if Maye stayed away from Gonzalez during a practice or during practices day in and day out, then that's making a statement to his wide receivers. It's telling his wide receivers, I don't believe in you. I don't believe that you can beat Christian Gonzalez. I don't believe you can beat that coverage. And I'm not going to look your way. So the idea of going after Gonzalez during practices, not consistently, but at least going after him from time to time, not only helps Drake Maye's confidence and proves that he's not worried about throwing a pick from time to time in practice because he understands the big picture and he understands that going after Gonzalez is going to make him better, but he also understands it's going to make his wide receivers better. And it instills that belief. And isn't that what it's all about? The quarterback is supposed to instill belief in the rest of the offense, whether it's the offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, it doesn't matter. One of the main priorities for any franchise quarterback, if you want to be that guy, if you want that kind of title, is to make sure that you're instilling belief in the rest of your team. And by going to wide receivers that are being covered by Gonzalez from time to time at practice is telling that wide receiver in those wide receivers, I believe in you. I'm going to go to you. Now, of course, as I mentioned a moment ago, this could also backfire from time to time. And yesterday was one of those times because the second minicamp practice this week saw Drake Maye throw a pick. And it was his first pick since that OTA practice that began all of this in front of the media. So Maye throws his first pick since a couple of weeks ago, and it happens to be Christian Gonzalez who's picking him off. But Drake Maye also threw a touchdown against Carlton Davis. So there's the good and the not so good. Throws an interception, trying to find Kyle Williams, ends up being an interception because of Gonzalez's coverage, and it looked like a slight overthrow when you look at the Patriots video that they finally released earlier today. Absolutely looks like a slight overthrow, but Gonzalez beats Williams in his coverage, and he ends up with the one-handed pick. But it doesn't mean Maye's not going to challenge Gonzalez ever again. It doesn't mean that Maye is going to tuck his tail and run to the corner. It doesn't mean that when Kyle Williams comes back to the huddle, Drake Maye is going to say, okay, you're donezo. It doesn't say any of that because he's going to keep challenging the best. And that's the mentality that you have to become a great professional athlete. So he gets picked by Gonzalez, but he throws a touchdown against Davis. But not only is this about Drake Maye and what he's trying to do, it's also about the wide receivers. Because if you're Kyle Williams, yeah, that pass yesterday got intercepted. But you're going against Christian Gonzalez, and your quarterback is giving you an opportunity to make a play. And if you're Williams and you understand that, then that's going to help your confidence. You're going to believe my quarterback is not going to give up on me. And so in case a play doesn't go my way or doesn't go my quarterback's way, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be phased out the rest of the day. Wide receivers, we know they love targets. They love getting the football. And they want to make sure that they're not going to get phased out from the offense. That if they make a little bit of a mistake or the coverage is too good on one play and the quarterback throws a pick, the wide receiver wants to know that that doesn't mean the rest of the day is done for him. And if you can make a play on Gonzalez, let's say the next practice, Maye throws to Gonzalez, towards Gonzalez, right? And let's say it's the first practice of training camp. I believe it's July 23rd. July 23rd morning. Maye and Williams and Gonzalez, they're all out there. And they're playing a session of 11 on 11. And let's say that Drake Maye throws it towards Williams, throws it at Christian Gonzalez, and Williams makes a play. That's going to instill the confidence in Williams, and he's going to believe that he can make a play the next time against Gonzalez. That's how this works. This is how you build up young players. This is how young players become consistent and dependable. And now just imagine if Williams beats Gonzalez a few times during training camp, if that's the hypothetical we're going off. If Williams beats Gonzalez a couple of times during training camp, what do you think that means to Williams when he's playing against other cornerbacks? What does that mean week 1, week 2, week 3? If Williams can get the best of Gonzalez even just a couple of times during practice throughout camp, that's going to give Williams the confidence when he's going against a lesser cornerback. We're talking about a second-team All-Pro guy in Gonzo. So if Williams can beat him at practice, even if it's just a couple of times, Williams goes out there and says to himself when he's being covered by somebody who is not an All-Pro, says to himself, hey, I've beaten Gonzalez at practice. I've taken Christian Gonzalez. I've taken Carlton Davis on some of these routes, and I've been successful. And if I could beat Gonzalez, if I could beat Davis, that means I can beat 95% of the corners in the NFL. And then you see that from Williams in his game. And you hope that it just builds momentum rolling down the hill. A couple of plays against Gonzalez in training camp ends up being a number of plays against a certain corner week 5, 6, or 7. Because Williams is going to look across and say, that's easy money. I know how good Gonzalez is. And I know how tough it is week in and week out at practice to get the best of Gonzalez. But Gonzalez is better than this guy. And I feel like I can beat this guy. And I am going to beat this guy. one more thing about the wide receiver quarterback working together and Drake Maye not being afraid of challenging Gonzalez in coverage. That is also preparation for moments during the season. If you create a moment during training camp where Williams beats Gonzo, then when you get into the regular season, when the bullets are flying and the football matters, and you get into the regular season and you want to go after somebody, if you want to throw at somebody, right? If you want to say, we're going to go to Kyle Williams, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go after that cornerback. We're going to go after that corner, and we're going to make Kyle Williams something that he's better than he even thinks he is, right? That prepares Kyle Williams for a big moment. Because if Kyle Williams makes the play during training camp, when it's fourth quarter in a game that matters and you need a play from Williams, Williams can draw back to going against Christian Gonzalez and make that play. It is preparation for bigger moments during the season. That's what practice is all about. So if you're not trying to go after the best of the best, if you're Drake Maye, and you're not trying to build up your wide receivers, then you're not doing the job right. And that mentality of embracing the challenge is exactly what you want to see from your young quarterback. And it doesn't go one way. Don't get it twisted. Gonzalez and Davis also need to prepare for the season. And if Maye is not trying to challenge Gonzalez, then Gonzalez isn't getting much work in. He's just out there running against air for all intents and purposes. So to attack Gonzalez and go after Davis and try to challenge those guys, it also allows Gonzalez and Davis to get prepared and be sharp for September. You're getting your teammates ready on the other side of the football so nobody sneaks up on you. So Gonzalez isn't getting beat in week one because he saw nothing go his way during training camp. So it not only helps Maye himself, not only helps his receivers, but it also helps the defensive backs that we're talking about. And you want to see how all of these guys respond. How does Maye respond after throwing a pick? He challenges Gonzalez. Gonzalez gets the best of him. How does Maye react to that? If Williams gets beat yesterday in that route and Gonzalez gets the pick, how does Kyle Williams come back from that? How does he respond? If Gonzalez gives up a play, how does he respond? You want to see how all of these guys respond to these different challenges. So I love hearing it. I love hearing Maye saying, no, I'm not going to throw at Gonzalez. And I've told Gonzo, I'm going to go after you. I'm going to try to get the best of you from time to time. That's precisely what you want from your young quarterback. All right, before we get to this week's mailbag, don't forget to do a couple things that helps us out. Click that thumbs up on the YouTube channel. Always helps us with the algorithm. So don't forget to like while you're here. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Love the comments about football, mainly. How do you feel about Maye not being afraid and embracing the challenge of trying to go after Gonzalez during practice? I love it. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Apple Pods, Spotify, our friends over there, rate, review, and follow. All right, let's get to this week's mailbag from the Patreon. Patreon.com/Nick Cattle, Cattles, Talk Extra Patriots. There you get ad-free podcast as well, and I talk about the other sports. So if you like what I do with the Patriots, you can check out the Patreon. This week, Patreon mailbag. Greg Fields, do you think Robert Kraft will ever retire and turn the team officially over to Jonathan? I personally feel it's been a long time coming. Highly unlikely, as long as Kraft feels like he has his faculties about him, so to speak. I mean, I understand why we always ask these questions about ownership and when is Robert Kraft going to say goodbye? When is he going to call it quits? When is he going to walk away and give the team to his son? This is always difficult. I watched the show Succession. It was a fantastic show. I'm sure many of you watched Succession. And in that show, it shows you the dynamics. It presents the dynamics between a family when the father owns the business and how the father is really defined by that business. And he's defined by his ownership of the franchise. And we're not only just talking about an owner in Robert Kraft that owns the Patriots franchise and they've won 6 Super Bowls. We're also talking about an owner who's had a significant amount of power in the league when it comes to negotiating the CBAs, when it comes to working on television broadcast contracts. Kraft has been one of the guys at the table. So that's a lot of power. And it's human nature. It's human nature to not want to give that up. It's very difficult. If you own the Patriots, would you give them up? Now, of course, we'd sit there and say, well, yes, eventually a day would come where I'd feel like I no longer had my fastball. I was getting older, and I would heroically give it to my son or daughter to run the team. But really, imagine if you owned the Patriots. Would you be excited to give up that opportunity? All the things that come with owning the New England Patriots? Think about Robert Kraft. He built his empire. He purchased the team. The team is worth a bazillion more than it was worth when he bought it. He funded Gillette Stadium. He has been there through all the greatest of times for this franchise. He's also been there during some bad times, obviously. But it's very difficult for somebody to just say goodbye and cut the cord. That's why a lot of people work until they're like in their 80s. Yeah, you can retire, but if you love what you do, you take pride in what you do, it's very difficult to walk away. Now, I will say it's usually around this time, this age, that owners call it a day. There's not a lot of owners that are, owning the team at 85, 86, 87 years old. But it's Robert's team. It's Robert's baby. And just imagine if it was your baby. It's tough for anyone to give it up. Would you easily and just willingly hand it to Jonathan if you were Robert? And one more reminder about this. We have no idea how Jonathan Kraft would be as an owner. We have no clue. We have no clue how he would handle the books. We have no idea how he would handle the media. We have no clue who Jonathan Kraft is as an owner of an NFL team. We have no idea. Is it going to look and feel the same? Is it going to look and feel different? Different sometimes is good, but different also sometimes is very bad. So I understand that the question about Robert Kraft, and it's about that age that we ask those questions. But we don't know what that would bring. I think some people just believe that it would be better, it would be different in a good way, but we don't know. So I'm not sure when Robert says goodbye to this team. I'm not sure when he's ready. I know when he was asked about it a couple of months ago, he didn't sound like an owner who was getting ready to wave goodbye to the fans and move on for the final few years of his life without being involved with the Patriots. When he was asked about it, he took it personally, and he answered the question as if somebody was trying to shove him out. So he didn't sound a couple of months ago like an owner who was looking forward to saying goodbye to his franchise. David Maine, of the Pats players not necessarily expected to make a major contribution to the team this year, who do you think might all in caps, have a breakout season that could help the team the most? Well, breakout season might be a little tough because we talk about so many different players. I mean, we've done multiple segments and podcasts on Efton Chism, for example. So I think it's pretty tough to say, oh, this guy could have a breakout season, and we haven't really talked about him. So I think that would be a little bit tough, a little hyperbolic on my part to say breakout season. But who do I think could have a bigger contribution? Who could have maybe a little bit bigger of an impact than we're thinking? I've got a couple of names. I'll start on the defensive line. Kyrie's Tonga. I think Tonga could have more of an impact than people realize. He is a legitimate nose tackle. He is a run stuffer. And if you're reading the reports over the past couple of days at minicamp, especially yesterday, practice number 2, if you're reading the reports, Milton Williams is moving around on the defensive line. Keon White is moving around on the defensive line. Let's not forget that Williams, he played less than 50% of the snaps last year for Philadelphia. He's going to play a lot more than that for the Patriots because of what they paid him. But I don't think he's going to be a 95% guy on the defensive line. So when you look at Tonga, Tonga is really the third guy on the depth chart because White's playing on the edge for a decent amount. So you've got Barmore, you've got Williams. The next guy in line has been Tonga at these practices. And then you get to Jeremiah Farms. So Tonga is that next guy up behind Barmore and Williams, and he's a run stuffer, which is something that Williams had a very tough time doing last year. Milton Williams is fantastic getting after the quarterback, and people believe that he can be better against the run than he was last year. But against the run, Williams was terrible. Pro Football Focus had Williams' run defense grade ranked 167th in the league. So if you want a guy in the middle of that defensive line that is going to help you stop the run, it's going to be Tonga. And so I think Tonga could be a bigger contributor than we think. And I'll also throw out Marcellus Dial. I think Marcellus Dial's kind of under the radar here. We've spent a lot of time on Alex Austin. We talked a little bit about Isaiah Bolden. But Marcellus Dial, he's right there with Austin. And he's playing outside. He's playing some inside. Dial could end up playing some of that nickelback role. So two defensive names that I think could contribute a little bit more in 2025 than we might think, have more impact, and that is Kyrie's Tonga in the middle of the D-line and Marcellus Dial at cornerback. Anonymous with a question. Would you like to see the Patriots on Hard Knocks? Yes. Let me know. Would you have loved to see the Patriots on Hard Knocks during this camp? Throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Yes, I would have loved to see the Patriots on Hard Knocks. I am a nerd. I am a geek for behind-the-scenes footage. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Whenever something comes out about the team, like those 60-second, 90-second videos of the draft room when they're calling a player or they're talking about something, I love the behind-the-scenes footage. And I think you've got plenty of personalities with this team that would have been fascinating to watch on Hard Knocks. Obviously, you start with Vrabel. I think Vrabel would have been fantastic on Hard Knocks. Charismatic, tons of personality, super involved during practices, not afraid to say what he thinks. I believe Vrabel would have been outstanding. Stephon Diggs, I think, would be very interesting on a Hard Knocks. Towards the tail end of his career, coming back from ACL surgery. Of course, you ended up having the boat thing happen. I think Diggs would have been interesting. I think Drake Maye, he's getting married in a couple of weeks, so congratulations to him. So his home life and his development on the field, his development off the field, trying to, make connections with new players. I think Maye is a fun personality. He's very likable. And you have interesting characters, guys that we don't know a lot about. I would love Hard Knocks to tell me more about Stretch. We know the different roles he's going to play, but I think it would be awesome to see Stretch on the field talking to players and an interview with them behind the scenes about what he does, his relationship with Vrabel, their experience in Tennessee. I'd love to see more about Stretch. Jason Hotailing, who is the second seemingly ranked offensive line coach, just underneath Doug Marrone on this staff. And Hotailing is kind of like a drill sergeant from what Greg Bedard and others have said. So I'd like to know a little bit more about Hotailing and his past. But the good news is Forged in Foxborough could give us some of this. I don't know if they will, but Forged in Foxborough could give us some of what Hard Knocks was going to give us. But we always have to remember that, Hard Knocks is something that's not run by the team. So if there's, a situation where the team doesn't want something to be seen or heard, Forged in Foxborough is able to get done with that. Gerard says that Hard Knocks eliminated teams with the first used head coach. Yeah, I know they tweaked the rules a little bit, but this is just a hypothetical. I would have loved to see the Patriots there. But hey, look, less of a distraction. And I think that's, if they don't want first-year head coaches on the show, it's because of the distraction it could create. All right, Ram, with possibly 4 new starters, how long will it take the O-line to gel? Could we see a rough patch to start the season before they all get on the same page? It's a great question, And this question means even more now today than it meant yesterday with Wes Schweitzer retiring. I talked about Schweitzer retiring on the Locked On Patriots podcast today. If you want to check that out, the domino effect that could have. But there's no guaranteed date to me for when an offensive line gels, especially when you have a lot of change. It could happen earlier than you think. A team could struggle to create that chemistry. You know, there's a lot. There's a lot on coaching. Does the coaching staff get enough out of the talent? Does the coaching staff do a good job of helping the cohesion up front? Aptitude. How are the players picking up the scheme and what this team wants to do offensively? You've got injuries, of course, which have already, I think, created somewhat of an obstacle. Jared Wilson has not been out on the field. Michael Onwenu has been limited. Tyrese Robinson, who had flashes a couple of weeks ago, he's been out recently with some kind of injury or whatever's going on with him. So it really depends on a lot of different elements. The coaching, the aptitude, the injuries, the offense that you're running. What are the responsibilities for each offensive lineman? How much is on their plate? Will they be able to adjust quickly to what is on the plate? And it also depends on the plan. Like all-out competition that we think is happening at left guard, that could take longer. Or the Schweitzer injury could actually make that process speed up a little bit. But now you got Schweitzer out. He's done. He retires. So you got Cole Strange and everybody else down the line from him. I'd imagine that the Schweitzer retirement is going to cause a little bit of noise. So when you get to training camp, you might have to adjust your depth chart at that position. You might try guys at left guard that you weren't thinking of trying. I know Caden Wallace, for example, this week, he got some snaps at left guard. So, does the competition at left guard drag? Does it take longer than you expected it to? Like try to settle on, 5, I would hope, before that first joint practice. That's what I hope that they will do, that they'll have the front 5 that they're hoping. And right now it feels like it's Campbell, Strange, Bradbury, Onwenu, and Morgan Moses. That's what it feels like right now. That's subject to change. But it does feel like they're leaning towards that 5 already. So hopefully you just want to get that 5 out there as much as possible and feel good about them by that first joint practice so they can really work against another team and you get a better feel for where they are. Let's not forget, they're not playing with pads. They're not dealing with a lot of contact, like pretty much no contact. Pass rushers are stopping their rush after like 3 or 4 steps. So we also have to get to that second stage of you walk into training camp and now they got the pads. Now they're going a little bit more full speed. How much does that change the plan? But I think they're good right now with Campbell at left tackle, Moses at right tackle, Onwenu at right guard. We've known that for months. It's just that center left guard situation and Jared Wilson, can he get on the field by training camp, and does he push Bradbury at center? If not, does he become an option at left guard? But I would just be ready for some communication issues the first couple weeks of the season, just in case. You'll have more issues from D-line games and blitzes. But you hope that they gel by that first or second joint practice they have. And then you're kind of ready to go over the next month before you kick it off. Rob C., will the legend of Efton Chism continue? Well, this week was not necessarily a great week for Efton. And we have been warning everybody since we started talking about Efton Chism. We have to temper expectations once the football gets a little bit more serious. In mandatory minicamp, it's a little bit more serious. It gets much more serious when you hit camp and then joint practices. So it's unlikely that Efton Chism is going to be out there doing things like we saw him doing in what was reported about during OTAs. It's unlikely. During minicamp, he's had 2 receptions. He had 2 receptions on day 1. He didn't have a single catch yesterday. Now, that's not all on Chism, but it is about some of the challenges and obstacles that we have discussed before. The idea that he's not going to continue to have these, opportunities and numbers because guys are coming back. When you're at OTAs, dudes are out. Hollins wasn't there. Diggs is not there. Polk's not there. Some of them are there, but they're not on the field. You get what I'm saying. Kendrick Bourne was not there at times. So during OTAs, you're going to get a lot of footballs thrown your way because there's just a numbers game playing out. Well, by the time you get to training camp, you're going to have Bourne. I think you'll have Hollins. I would imagine you'll have Stephon Diggs at some point during training camp. So the numbers game is very difficult. And then you got to put pads on. The physicality ramps up. So I still give Chism a shot at the roster, but I think it's far from a lock. And I've said that for a while now. I think he's got a shot, but I think this week was a little bit of a step back towards closer to reality. We'll see if he comes back firing on all cylinders when we get to training camp. But the numbers are going to be tough for him. There's like 12 dudes on the roster at wideout. Mr. Snoopy, would you trade a second and a fourth for Terry McLaurin? Second and a fourth. Sure. I would trade a second and a fourth for McLaurin and a fifth. I like them apples. I'd make that deal. All right, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. Everybody out there, enjoy your weekend. I appreciate every single one of you. We will be back on Monday, next Monday at 3 p.m. live right here on YouTube. Until then, see you.